In this lecture, I am going to show you how to upload a file directly from a browser to a bucket on S3 with the help of Express. We still need Express involved in this, and let me draw it out quickly. I am going to assume up front that you have an AWS account and you know what S3 is, and I'll draw a bucket here. This is our bucket where our stuff is going to go. If you're not, you need to be, but it's essentially Amazon's hard drive that has unlimited space for all intents and purposes. It's incredibly fast. We want to get to this thing as quickly as possible because it is big, it is fast, it is made to serve the internet anywhere and everywhere. Okay? Historically, this is how it would have worked. We would have our Express server. And the Express server is listening for HTTP traffic. And then over here, we would have our browser. Okay, and this is, all my browsers look like this. I'm sorry, I'm not a better drawer, but this is our laptop. And the browser would normally, again, what I would do is I would send the file up via HTTP. And I would use the Multer module on Express. Multer is for multi-part files. It was fantastic at processing them. What would happen, though, is the file would be hosted here on Express, even if only in memory, potentially on the hard disk. Once it was finished uploading, then it would get passed on through and put into the bucket. Now, as some of you may have noticed, over the past several years, things have changed dramatically, and I haven't done it this way for a long time, so it's time to get this updated. This is not good, right? We want to go directly from the browser to the bucket. But we can't do that, at least not, again, without Express's help, because this has to have some restrictions. We can't just allow anybody from your website to upload to the bucket. Otherwise, before you know it, you'll be paying for the entire internet to host their files on your bucket on S3. So the way that the process is going to work is we are going to still make this request, but instead of sending a file, we are just going to send some JSON, some data. Okay, we don't need to send up the whole file because maybe it's a 2 gigabyte file. Maybe it's a 30 gigabyte file. We don't want that on our Express server. We've got limited hard disk space. They don't. It's going to suck up bandwidth. AWS essentially has unlimited bandwidth. Okay, so we're going to send just a tiny bit of JSON. Express has already got a relationship with AWS. So we have established this beforehand. And it's a hashing algorithm now. You don't actually have to make a request, but it's easier to think about it this way. Express will say, hey, AWS, I've got a person who wants to upload something. Okay, I need a URL for them to post it to. That URL will have a token inside of it that will tell AWS they have, it can be this file type, it can be this size, and they have this much time to upload it. And then after that, I'm going to close off the window. Okay? That URL will come back. Express will send that back out to the browser. So this is called a put URL. Okay, they're done for now. Express has done its part in generating a URL that can be validated and protected because we're going to have access keys on here, and I'll even write that in here. Access keys. Right? We can't have those on the browser, so Express has to do this part. It sends back the put URL. Now, instead of sending the file directly to without any restrictions, it sends uses the put URL and sends up the file. Okay? Now, this is only step one. Now, I know there's a ton of moving parts. There's going to be quite a bit of work we have to do, but we need a second part. At least I have always needed one. Once the file is uploaded, we are going to need AWS to respond to the browser with some kind of, a 200 or a 500 or a 404 or whatever the status code is. Why? Well, let's take a really generic use case. Let's say what we're trying to upload to Express is a profile picture. Okay? You've got a profile picture. Get me a code or get me a URL. Okay, I got your URL. Here you go. We update the database on Express with the new key, the new location on S3. The file starts uploading and it fails. It fails because it's actually a 2 terabyte file, or it's the wrong file, or they time out because there's a hiccup in their internet connection. Our database is now wrong. Express now has the wrong information because this didn't succeed. So step one is going to be that initial request We'll put get put URL. I guess we'll say step 2, upload the file. And then step 3, we'll make another, we'll do a post request to let Express know what happened. Okay, ... So there's lots going on here, and we got a little bit of work to do, but it is absolutely worth it because this is so fast compared to the old way where we had to upload the file to Express processed it, and then uploaded it to S3. The browser now just says, hey, Express, I need a URL. Okay, your middleware can decide, is this person have the right to upload it? What is it? What should I do, etc.? Okay, they can grab the URL, send the URL back, upload the file directly to S3. This connection is going to be so fast. When S3 is done, it will send a response back. We'll make one last HTTP. I'm going to put here number 3, where the browser will let Express know, hey, file succeeded, and now we can update the database with, okay, this is the right profile picture now, or this is the document that person has in their account, or whatever it might be. Okay, we're going to do again, just a real quick. We're going to use AWS and S3. You have to have those accounts. I'm not going to talk through them. You can follow me, or you can go find other videos on that. We are going to use Express. That is absolutely critical here. For the front end, I am going to use React, and the reason I'm using React is because I'm trying to remain as generic as possible. It's more than likely most people are going to be using React. If you're an Angular person, or you're using jQuery or vanilla JavaScript, that's totally fine. You'll just have to translate it. I will try and help you, but it's really going to be a tiny React app that we're going to create. So it should be very, very simple. We are also going to use a root level access key for the AWS account. I realize that might not suit your needs, okay? There are a zillion ways to use IAMs and write access rules in AWS. Again, I gotta be generic. There's no way I can cover all those. If you have IAM restrictions, you should know how to do that, or you can, again, chase down something else. You can always ask, but I have to go with the most generic way, and so we'll generate a root access key so that Express can get access to that S3 bucket. That's not going to give root access to the browser. It's just going to give root access to Express to say, hey, I need a person to upload a file to this bucket, and AWS will never refuse that. Again, if you want to set up specific access rules, by all means do it. I'm just going to go as generic as possible, okay? That should cover us. Let's go code. This will be fun. Before we start coding, I want to give you a quick demo. That's always good practice, so you know what we're going to make. But also, the UI is very simple, and I want to set expectations. This is on purpose. For one thing, I'm a developer, I'm not a designer. But more than that, the purpose here is to give you the tool to be able to upload from the browser to S3 without Express involved any more than necessary. And a big front end, a fancy, React front end with lots of drag and drop and extra fields and validation and all of that. We could do that, but that's going to take extra time that is not important to our task. What frustrates me is when I'm trying to learn something new and it's a really fleshed out project, but I only care about like this 15%, right? This little section over here, and I have to dissect a bunch of code and figure out, what's important, and I leave a line out and everything breaks, or whatever. I'm trying to stay as close to the metal here as possible. So this is an index.html file and a Scripts.js file. No front-end UI, nothing. It's just vanilla JavaScript. I am using Axios to make our HTTP requests. If you want to use the Fetch API or jQuery.ajax or something like that, that's of course fine, but everything else will just be as close as possible so that you have exactly what you need to apply this. Because more than likely, you're coming to this with an application in mind, you've got an existing code base, or you're just going to keep it in your pocket to use later. It'll be much easier to do that if we keep it simple here. Okay, and for that reason, I have made a repository called file from browser direct to S3. So it's as descriptive as I could think to make it, where you'll find the final files here. Right now, these are not the finished files. They are just placeholders for us. But you can get everything here. It'll be easier to work with for some people. I will also put it in the main Express class repository, so it'll be in both places. Okay. Make note here of starter files. There are 2 in here, and we will need both of these. The index.html, you can go ahead and grab this however you grab files, but we will need this pretty quickly here. Okay, so back to our demo. If you click on choose file, I'm also using Bootstrap. It makes it look a little less intolerable. I wouldn't say pleasing, but it at least makes me feel better. This opens up the dialog here, the file dialog. I'll pick this file. It's a logo for a new course I have on technical communication for engineers. I will click, I'm only accepting JPEGs and PNGs, so I'll show you how to do that. Click on continue. We get a progress bar here. We get a suite alert, which is another library I'm using. You certainly don't have to use it. And then the image loads up here. And then we still have our stuff down there. Down at the bottom here, you can see we had some chatter here from AWS and from Express. And that is it. This is now on S3. If I do a quick inspect here, you can see this is at s3-express-direct, which is my bucket.s3.amazon.com. And then I'm pulling back a signed link here. Because if I try and open this in a new tab, it will load up. But if I remove, let me get rid of the all of this extra stuff here. We'll grab, there we go, all the way to the end. It's not signed anymore. It is access denied. That I do not have access to that. And again, I will show you how to do that, but it's coming through with a signed link. Okay, so that is our project. So coming over to Visual Studio Code, I have a README file, just a little markup. This is in the repository that I showed you. But just want to go over our file structure quickly here. I'm going to close starter files down so you can see everything. Index.js, which is right here, and everything is empty. I'm going to type everything with you. The get-ignore file doesn't matter. The public folder here, index.html, is filled out with the starter file that I showed you. These are identical. Again, you can get it from over here, so go ahead and grab that, and you can put that inside of public. But going back over to our README file here, index.js is going to be the entry point for our application. This is what we're going to run Nodemon on. We're going to put the Express server here. It will be a fairly short file. Again, we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to make this the simplest Express server possible. Normally, I would use the Express generator, but we're going to stay small. The public folder is where our front end will live. If we were using React, we'd have Webpack and it would have its own folder or whatever. That's not going to be the case here. We just have these 2 files, like I said, index.html, which I will go over with you briefly in a second, and Scripts.js. We have an index router. This is where the routes will not love, but live. This is a rule that I won't violate. We could put them inside of our index.js file, but I do not do app.get and app.post unless I'm teaching a really simple class with one file and that's it. I just don't do that. I only do stuff in routers because I've learned from experience it's not good to put them on apps. So it's just a rule that I won't break. So we'll make that file. We will need a config.js file. This is where the credentials for S3, or rather AWS, will go. If you use environmental variables or some other way to get that stuff in, that is fine. I'm making a file so that you can see what it looks like. We're going to have 2 files for our S3 stuff. One will be a put link so that we can put an object to S3. This is just going to be a function that we'll export. And then we'll need to get a signed link because I'm going to keep everything private, and I will show you that when I make the bucket here in a minute. Okay, so these are our files. You can go ahead and make these. You can pause me for a second if you want, but we need a public folder. Index.html has that starter code in it. I'll go over this here in just a sec. Scripts.js is empty. The starter files, you don't need to worry about that one. Config.js, get S3 put link, get S3 signed link, index, and then index router. Okay? Real quick, let's look at index.html. Let me make it a little bigger here. Up at the top, this is the link to Bootstrap so that we can use some Bootstrap stuff. Container and row and MT3, those are Bootstrap things. Current image is an empty div. That is where we will put the image once it has been uploaded, basically to confirm. This is the form from right here to here. It has an ID on it so we can add a listener. This is a bootstrap thing just to put a border around it, so it's a little, again, a little less intolerable. This is our input box, and we'll target it with this ID. If you didn't know this, you can accept certain types of files, and so you have the MIME type in here, so image PNG. You might have text/HTML, audio/MP4, whatever you're willing to accept. If you want everything, you put star, which is the default, and then the type, of course, is file. I've got here just some text that says what I'm accepting, and then we have a submit button to actually move forward. The cancel button doesn't need to be here because that doesn't do anything. At least I'm not planning for it to be, but it's there for now. This section, the progress wrapper, is just that. On load, it is hidden, and then once the upload is initiated to S3, we will show it. This is a bootstrap thing. We will dynamically update this value as well as this value. And that is our HTML. As I mentioned, I'm pulling in Axios, which is how I'll do my HTTP requests, and then Sweet Alert so that we can give ourselves a little bit better feedback. And then lastly, you must include Scripts.js because that's where all of our JavaScript is going to go. So please get this into place. You shouldn't need to come back here other than to reference class names or IDs, and that should do us there. I am going to go over to, let's grab index.js, and let's make our Express server. So first of all, we'll do const express equals require Express. Naturally, we need to install it. So I'm going to open up my terminal window here, and I'm going to do an npm init-y to get us a package.json. We'll do npm install express whenever you are done. I'm going to go ahead and come back over and let's make an app, and that will be invoking the Express module. So create an app. We will, let's do an app.use. We're going to do express.static and hand it public. And I'll make a note here where our front end lives. This is just middleware, which hopefully you're familiar with. We're just telling Express as early as possible that if you find something in the public folder, serve it up statically, so our HTML and our JavaScript. We're going to need an app.use express.json open close. We need this to get rec.body. So in the old days, body parser is what was used. I think it's still used in the Express generator. We don't need that anymore. This piece of middleware will do that for us. You absolutely have to have that, or rec.body is going to come back either undefined or as an empty object, which we don't want. And then we're going to have an app.use, and we are going to need to make our index router. So let's throw that in here. We'll do const index router. Actually, let's do that back up at the top. Equals require tick.slash index router, and let's go export something there quick. So please make indexrouter.js. And over here, we are going to need the Express module. So require Express. And then we're going to need the router, which is express.R router open close. So get the router class and make an object. So we're invoking this thing and we're storing that object inside of router, and then down at the bottom here, let's do module.exports equals router, and let's make a dummy route real quick. We'll do router.get /test, bring in rec and res, and let's res.json test. Okay, again, this is just a requirement. I can't live with myself doing things any other way except in very rare circumstances. This is where our routes will live. I don't attach routes to app. I only do them to router. Unless I have a very, very good reason. So please get here if you need to catch up a little bit. Otherwise, let's go back to our Express server here. We've got our index router required. We are using it. This will apply it to all routes because we didn't include a path. Okay, so that puts us in good shape there. Let's do an app.listen. I'm going to listen on port 3000. And then just to make sure that we are working, let's throw console.log in there. listening on port 3000. I'm sorry, Visual Studio Code's been getting a lot more obnoxious on those tips lately. I can't seem to see anything. But this is enough for our Express server. The rest of our work will happen inside of index router or in those other two S3 files. But let's give this a try. Going to run nodemon on index. Make sure that you don't get any errors. Let's hop over to the browser here. I'm going to refresh this. Okay, my index.html loads up, which is good because we're serving that up statically. And if I go to /test, we want to see that JSON come through. If you go anywhere else, it should say, I can't get that because that route doesn't exist. Okay, so please make sure that you are here, /test works. And then if you just go here, I mean, essentially what it's doing is index.html, right? That's what's loading up there. Make sure that you're getting this. Okay, when you are all caught up, we are going to start in Scripts.js. So I'm going to close a bunch of these extra files that we don't need right now. And okay, so we're down to just our front end. We're going to spend a little bit of time here before we move on. So in index.html, our form is right here. It's file form. So in scripts, this will be, we can put this at the bottom, but document.getElementById, grab the thing with file-form as its ID. We're going to add an event listener, add the submit listener, and we are going to listen for add file. And so we'll need to define that. We'll do const add file. We are going to expect the event, and for now, let's just console.log e. In addition to that, we're going to need to do e.prevent default. Depending on where you're coming from, that might happen automatically, but we have to tell the browser do not move forward, because if we don't, the browser will go to whatever the action is, and we don't have an action, so it will just refresh itself, which we don't want. Okay, so we're looking for line 4 here. Let's do a quick sanity check. Need to refresh. Get the console open, grab that same file here, click continue, and there we go. There's our line 4, and it comes through with all of the info here. Okay, target, you can make note of that. We're going to need target 0, and then we're going to need down at the bottom here, halfway down I guess, is files 0. That is where our file lives. So we can go ahead and just grab that right now. Const file equals e.target 0.files 0. So that's the thing we are after. Let's log that. Make sure that you're seeing your file. So refresh, grab our file, continue. Okay, again, make sure that this is what you're seeing. We're just bringing in one file. You can do the multi file upload if you want. That's going to change things significantly though, because you're going to have to start mapping through. We're just grabbing the one file here. And this is all we want to send up to Express. The goal here is to send up the MIME type, the name, and the size. We don't want to send the file itself. That is exactly what we're trying to get away from. We want to send it directly to S3. Okay, so I'm going to comment that out, and we'll put in here step 1. Get a link from Express so we can upload our file directly to S3. So this is where we have to start. As I already mentioned back at the board, we have to use Express because Express has a relationship with S3, which is validated. That's where our keys will live. We cannot expose that to the browser. So the browser has to ask Express, which is trusted, for the link. Express can make decisions about can this person, can this user, this browser, is it okay for them to upload? And then it will send the link back. So that's the first thing that we'll do here. So the data we're going to send up, we need to tell Express the file name, which is coming from file.name, comma, and then the file size, file.size. We may not need to do that, but we'll go ahead and send up the size. You can also do file type, and that will be file.type. And the browser has already determined what this file is. Okay, so that's what we're going to send up to Express. We do not want to send up the file. That's exactly what we're trying to get away from here. What if it's a 2 GB file, right? We don't want to send that up to our server. So we're going to do a const. Our post URL, in my case, is going to be http //localhost 3000, and we'll make a new route called, let's do get put link. So that is where we're going to go to on Express, and we will have const post resp equals, we're going to do await, and if we're going to do await, we need to come back up here and put async in front of our e so that it will let us do that. So await axios.post, go to our post URL and send our data. Again, the reason that I can run Axios here is because over in index.html, down at the very bottom, I've included axios.min.js. Okay, if you want to use fetch, use fetch. If you want to use Ajax, use Ajax. It does not matter. We're just sending a request up. Okay, let's console.log what we get back, which right now will be nothing. We'll have a 404 here, and we can go ahead and test that out. I'll refresh, throw our file up there, and continue. And sure enough, we get a Axios error. If we, that's not very helpful. There we go. A request comes back with a 404. The headers should be in here somewhere. I guess it doesn't matter. We know what the error is. So let's go over to our index router, which is where our routes are going to live. We're going to have a router.post. We are listening for, come back over to scripts. It's this guy here. It's get put link. So drop that in. We are going to need our rec and our res in our middleware here. And let's put some notes in here, okay? This route's job is to decide, one, can the user upload this file? Now, for us, and I'll make that note here, in this example, anyone can upload anything. I'm not going to put restrictions on this. For you, maybe it's checking a JSON web token to see who is this person, and do they have an account? And how big is their file? And what type of file is it? Is that okay, right? All of that stuff, that's where this would go. I'm not doing any of that because I don't know what your situation will be. I'm just going to always say yes, okay? So that is job number one. Can the user upload this file? Two, if so, ask S3, or we'll put AWS, for a put link that can upload from the browser. And then three, send that link back or let the user know there was an error. Okay, again, in the real world, you need to gate this because, and I'll even make that note, please gate this in production, ... Don't pay for the internet to host its files on your S3 bucket. Okay, I'm not doing that. This app isn't going to live past this video, and so mine will be okay. But that's what this route's job is. We cannot do this stuff on the front end because we need access tokens and so on that need to be protected. Okay, let's grab our data out. So we are going to destructure rec.body. What do we need? Well, let's go back over to scripts. We sent over file name, size, and type. So we'll throw in there file name, file size, and file type. We may not need all of them. In fact, the only thing we definitely need is file name. And the reason for that, make a unique key name for the file. When we upload this to S3, it's possible that there are they're going to be the same file name will be sent up more than once. In fact, you've seen me do in my test the same file over and over. We don't want the keys to ever overlap, whether that means overwriting it or whether that means the upload fails. So we're going to make our own unique key. And the way I do that, use the timestamp for the upload. That's really handy because you'll always have the timestamp that the thing was uploaded. Okay, if you ever need that information, it will be available. And believe me, it can be such a relief to find a timestamp on a file the moment that you need it. So we're going to make a variable called unique key name equals, go into template literal mode here and grab date.now, open close. convert it into a string because we don't want it to be an integer, put on there a dash, go back into template literal mode here, and we are going to do encode URI component, and then we will hand it the file name that we just brought in here on line 11. So we are taking the file name that was sent to us from the browser, and we're going to encode it. The reason for this, and I'll make that note here, encode URI makes the name URL safe. We don't want spaces in it, okay? So for instance, the empty string becomes %20. So we need to do this in order to guarantee that the key is valid and it's going to be easy to work with in the browser. The date is on the front so that the .jpg comes at the end. However you want to do this is just fine. The point is we have a unique key name for this particular file now. We brought up the MIME type, the file type here from the browser. I like to do extra validation here because AWS will not allow you a disparate MIME type. So if you tell AWS, hey, I'm sending you an image that's a JPEG and it's actually an MP4, it's gonna break. And I spent like 6 hours working on this a long time ago trying to figure out what happened. And so my preference is to do this. We are going to go and fetch a node module called MIME types. And of course we need to install it. So go ahead and get this line, const MIME and require MIME types. I'm gonna hop over here, kill the server, and do an npm install MIME types. While that's running, wow, that was fast. Let's fire the server up again. Come over to the npm page for MIME types, and look at that, 49 million downloads this week. This is an important module for the whole internet. It is the ultimate JavaScript content type utility. So we are going to use lookup. All we need to do is hand it the file name, and it will determine the correct MIME type. Again, MIME type is things like application/JSON, text/HTML, text/markdown, etc. So this is what we're interested in here. Let's come back over to our code. We've got MIME now. Let's do const MIME type equals call MIME and hand it our file name. So it will use the file name which has the extension in it in order to pull it back. If that gives you trouble, you can fall back on the file type, whatever is appropriate for you. This is going to be a little bit of troubleshooting on your part, but make sure you have the right MIME type. It caused me a lot of pain. So learn from my mistake there. We want to make sure that we send over the right file type. And this should do the trick consistently. Oh, I'm sorry. It won't because we need to have lookup in there. I just mentioned that. My fault. This will do the trick here nicely for us. Okay, now we are going to call getS3 put link and send it our file and bucket. And I'll put in there, I guess, our unique file name. Okay, so we're going to need to go over to that file. So let's grab getS3 put link, and we'll put at the top here, this file generates a put link for the browser. It is signed and validated based on params we set here. Okay, so this is where the bulk of our work is going to land. And in order to do this, we need the require AWS-SDK. And I'll make a note there. AWS-SDK is the software development kit, which is what SDK stands for all things AWS in Node. Okay, other languages have their own SDKs. We, of course, are interested in the Node.js one. If we hop back over to NPM here and I search for AWS SDK, you grab the top one here, 10 million. It's not MIME types, but this is an incredibly important one. It says the version 3 is available. I think we can use that without any issues. If we just try and npm install it without telling it the version, it will install version 2. So it is up to you which way you want to go. If you click on developer preview here, I'm happy to say this is so much better than it used to be. The documentation was
awful. At least I hated it. I mean, maybe it was great and I just have a weird preference, but if you click on the API reference here, it's so much better than it used to be. The code examples are easier to read, they're more relevant. The main problem with S3 documentation, or sorry, with AWS documentation, is that it is so large that it's so intimidating to come to. It's sort of like Google Maps when I first started working with Google Maps way back in my early days. It was so easy to get intimidated by the API because it was so huge. Okay, so we need this thing. So let's go npm install it. npm install AWS-SDK. This one might take a little more time. When it is done, fire your server back up and save this. And we want to just make sure that that it's coming through okay, to make sure that you got it. The first thing that we need to do is configure the AWS module to use our AWS account. And the way that I am going to do this is hopping over here to the console. You need an AWS account. So if you don't have one, you need to make one. And if I come up here to search, you can search for S3. I'll click on S3. This is one of my many AWS accounts. I don't have anything created right now. So I'm going to need to create a bucket from scratch. But the first thing we're going to do is up here on your name, if you click on that, there's a security credentials option. Okay, and this is how I am going to do it. Now, I cannot tell you how to do it. You need to do it the way that you need to. I am going to make an access key, and this is the root user. So it's going to get mad at me here. I'm going to create an access key, and it's going to say, whoa, you sure you want to do that, right? Don't do that because you can't specify the root user and permissions policy, okay? This course, or this video, this lecture, is not on Amazon Access. If you are interested in that, IAM is how you do that, Identity Access Management. You can create users. It's going to take way too much time for us to do that, so I am just going to make a root level key. It is just fine here because this is a simple case. I understand that you don't want me to use one, but I'm going to use one anyway. Again, you can go through all this stuff here, use alternatives such as an IAM role, blah, 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 learn more. If you want to do that, please do it. I am doing it at a root level. Please be aware, okay? It kicks out an access key here, so I'm going to copy that. Let's come back over to our code base, grab config.js, and we're going to make a variable here called config. It will be an object. Let's do module.exports config. Okay, and we're going to have in here an access key property and set it equal to that. We're going to have a secret access key, which we will set equal to. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in here. You should absolutely never show anybody this, contrary to what I am doing right now, okay? The only reason I'm showing you this is so that you can see it. And two, I'm going to delete this key as soon as the video is over. I will even show it to you so that you can see when it's disabled. Again, absolutely do not share that with anybody, especially because it's your root key, okay? But we have our access key and our secret access key. That gives the SDK access to our account, okay? Click done. It will let you know, hey, are you sure you don't want to download or view it because you can't get it back? Yes. If you made a mistake or you didn't get it, you can delete it and regenerate it. Okay? With that, I'm going to come over to services. I'm going to go back to S3. Again, you can type in S3 in the search bar, and that will get you to the same page here. I'm going to create a new bucket. The bucket name, you might be familiar with this already, but it has to be unique within the S3 bucket global namespace. So if I try Batman, I'm just in the Batman mood, that is not going to work because somebody definitely already has Batman, but I'll pretend that I don't know that. Object ownership, I'm going to leave ACLs disabled because we don't need them to be enabled. In my case, I'm going to upload it. It will be owned by my root user or by the bucket owner, I guess. If you know what you're doing, you can enable ACLs. I am going to leave all public access blocked. In order to get this file, remember back over here, you have to have the signed link in order to get it. I am going to leave that in place. Right? Nobody will be able to access these files unless they have a signed link. AWS has this on by default because I think it's been like 10 years ago now, but there was some really big issues with some public companies that had files that shouldn't have been available that were. The rest of this stuff is all fine. It's encrypted, bucket keys enabled, blah, blah, blah. The only thing I'm putting in here is the bucket name. Make note of your AWS region. Mine is in US East 1, which is up in DC. So I'm going to click Create Bucket. It's not going to work because somebody's already got Batman. So I'm going to change it to, let's do S3 direct from browser. We'll see if that works. Okay, good stuff. So that worked. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put this in as well, a default bucket, and I'm going to put that in there for our credentials. We can put the region, which is going to be handy. The default region, I guess, is maybe what we'll call it here, default region, because I always use these for multiple buckets, and sometimes they're in different regions. Again, mine is in US-East-1. You can get that by clicking on the bucket. Lastly, we're going to put in here the signature version. We are using v4. This is going to be for the SDK. You don't have to put this here, and you really don't have to put either of these defaults. I just think they're kind of nice for our S3 config. Okay, so this is the last time I'm probably going to show you this file. I'm going to close that down, come back over to our put link file, and we are ready to configure it. Let's right below line 3 here, config equals require our ./config file. And per our comment there on line 5, we're going to do aws.config.update, hand it an object. Okay, and this is a case where they give us a little bit of help here. The options, I guess they don't really tell us what the options are. So thanks for trying Visual Studio. We have to provide the access key ID, and that is coming from config.accessKey. We need to provide the secret access key, and that comes from config.secretAccessKey. We need to provide the region, and this part is up to you. You can put in you can hard code it. I'm going to go ahead and use config.defaultRegion. And then the signature version is going to come from our config.signatureVersion. Okay, so that is all we need to configure the AWS module to work with our stuff. This gives it access to our account. Okay, so next step is to define our function, and we will call this getS3PutLink equals a function, and we are going to export that function. So module.exports equals getS3PutLink. Okay, so the name of our file is also the name of our function. And what do we need to bring in here? Well, we are going to expect the unique S3 key, the MIME type, as well as the bucket. And we will we'll set the default for the bucket to our config.default bucket. So if you don't send it over, that's okay. We'll use the default bucket. The MIME type and the unique S3 key, obviously, those are going to be required every single time. Let's return a new promise. So we'll need resolve and reject. And we're going to have, I think, a wait in here. So let's go ahead and put async on our callback. This thing is going to go talk to S3. So this is the part where Express/Node talks to S3 and gets a link. So that's what the async here is for. That's why we have our promise. And we need to define some options here. So we'll leave it as an empty object here. We are going to need that to create an S3 object from the AWS module. So we configured AWS up here. Now we are going to create an S3 object. So we'll call it S3, and that is going to be a new AWS.S3 open close, and we're going to hand it the options. Okay, so again, AWS is at the top level. We've configured it so that it can access our account. Now we are drilling down into S3, which belongs to AWS, but we have to send it some options. And this is going to be a little bit redundant. I didn't make the API or the SDK, so don't get mad at me. We're going to have to repeat ourselves a little bit. But we need in here the bucket, and that will be the bucket name. We've got it, I guess, up here. It's just bucket. So we can just do bucket, and that'll come through again as the default if the user, or if the caller doesn't specify. So we need the bucket. We need the region, and the region can use... I guess let's go ahead and bring in the region as well up here. We'll do region, and we'll set that equal to config.default region, so that if you've got the bucket in a different region, you can pass that in as well. But we can leave that here as just region. We need the signature version, and the signature version is going to come from this same place. And that should, I think that will always be the case. I don't know why that would change, but you can of course bring that parameter in if you need to. The signature expires, I'm going to put in here 60. This is the number of seconds the link will be valid for, okay? And 60 is the default. So I'm including it. You wouldn't have to, obviously, because it's already the default. Theoretically, it will happen instantly, right? We'll create this link, we'll send it back to the front end, and the front end will immediately start the process. But there could be a hiccup in the internet. It could be that Node doesn't get back, or you've got a lot of processing to do, so there's a 10-second delay while you're updating various assets or whatever. 60 seconds is pretty standard. Adjust that obviously as you need to. The ACL property we have to include, I guess you don't have to include it. A private is default. You saw that already. I have disabled ACLs. They give the ability to set the permissions on an individual file. In our case, or in my case, everything is owned by the root user or by the bucket owner. Lastly, we have a unique prefix, and I'm going to set that to true. This is also true is default. If set to false, it will allow keys with the same name. And I don't think I've ever used that before. I don't think that's a good idea. If you have a use case for it, though, you need to set that to false. Okay, so these are our options. Again, back up top here, we configured the AWS module to work with our account. Now we have created an S3 object from the AWS module. So now we can interact with our S3 bucket on our AWS account. Okay, we also have to set up some params, and this is gonna be an object. Let's go ahead, hop down here. We run s3.getSignedUrl and pass it the action. Let's do this on different lines here. It'll be the action, 2 params, and 3 the callback. So I'm getting a little bit ahead here. We've made an S3 object. So down here, we're going to do s3.getSignedUrl. We're going to do the exact same thing in our other file, but we're going to use a different action here. So they're telling us here, getSignedUrl. The first thing is the operation. The second things are params, which we're going to go back and define. And then the third thing will be the callback, which will have the errors as well as the URL or the link that you asked for. Okay. What we are going to do is the put object operation. We are going to send params, and we are going to have a callback which has error as well as our signed link. Okay, so one more time. Configure AWS to talk to our AWS account. Drill down inside of S3 now with these options, make an S3 object from our AWS account. Now we're going to define some parameters so that when we call s3.get our signed link, what kind of link do you want? We want to put object to S3. So here are some parameters for us to send up that you need to know. The bucket, capital B, is going to be bucket. The key is going to be, this is the first time we've used this one. Back up top here, we had the unique S3 key. So drop that in there. Expires 60. So again, in seconds, how long we can use that. The content type is going to be the MIME type, which we brought in back up top here. And then lastly, the ACL is set to private. Again, this is really redundant. I know we've already done we've done this in a couple different places now. this is how it works, at least as of the making of this video. You can try reducing these down or look through the documentation, but this is how it works as of right now. Let S3 know we want to make a put object signed URL. These are the parameters for that signed URL. Once you are done, if there's an error, I'm going to put throw error. Don't use this in production. You'd want to handle the error. If you got one, I'm just going to throw it because we'll need to deal with it. Otherwise, we can resolve our signed link. Okay, this thing has done its job at this point. Whoever called our function will have sent these three things, or I guess or these four things at the very least, the key and the MIME type. Now we are ready to send them back a signed link. Okay, this came from index router. So back over here now, we need to import this back up top. So we'll do const get s3 put link require tick.slash get s3 put link. Okay, this is going to be whatever that file exports, which is this, which is this. Okay, and remember it returns a promise. So back over here we can do const signed link equals await, call that function. Okay, we're getting a red line there. That means we need to come up here and make our middleware function async. Come back down. What do we send this thing? Well, the unique key and the MIME type. So let's throw over there the unique key name, the MIME type, which we just made on line 19 here. And then I'm not going to send the other ones because I don't have another bucket. The default is fine, and then the region is fine. Okay, so just make note of those. We don't need to send them using default region and bucket C function signature. Okay, that is the end of Express's job for now. So Express now sends back the link and waits for confirmation of upload. Okay, we'll throw in here a res.json, send back an object. We'll send back the signed link. Let's also send back the MIME type, just the MIME type that we ended up using. And then we'll want to send back the unique key name because it will be necessary on the other side when we want to get the signed link as opposed to getting the put link. Okay, so these three pieces of data, Express is done its job. Send that back over to the browser. Now you might have, like I said back at the beginning, you would gate this so that if the person, you already res.json, hey, you're unauthorized, or hey, you need to do this first, or this file's not valid, or whatever. I've got it so that it's always going to accept, and it's going to send back these three things. Okay, let's go back to Scripts. Inside Scripts here, our post response, let's post resp.data is going to equal, or it's going to contain these three things. This will be nice for reference here. All right, so let's do const post data equals post data.rest, because we're going to use this quite a bit, .data. That's how Axios comes back with its responses. It's always inside of data. Let's console.log it just to make sure that it looks like what we think it should. So line 17, if all goes well, will contain these three things. So it's been a minute since we wrote a lot of code there. Let's come back over here and give it a test. Send up technical communication, continue. Okay, line 17, there we go. MIME type, signed link, which has everything in there, the token and so on required to send this up directly from the browser, and then the unique key name. Okay, so if you need to pause me and deal with an error, please do. We wrote a lot of code, so don't feel bad in the least. I'm going to comment out that log. That concludes step number 1. Okay, so step 2, turn on the progress bar because we're ready to start uploading this. So let's do a document.getElement. I don't remember what that was. The progress wrapper is an ID. So we need to turn the display to block. So let's do by ID. progress wrapper, set the dot style dot display equal to block. So that will make it show. We can make a note here and say if there is no post data dot the sign link, if that doesn't come through for any reason, we can throw up a sweet alert here, and that's part of the global scope from index.html down here at the bottom. Remember, I included it here. So the sweet alert is part of the window. If you wanted to do that, you could, but we don't need to. We'll put in here title, Express rejected the link, or didn't send the link. I don't know, however you want to say that. And then the icon here would be an error. And actually, we should probably put that before the Express, or the progress bar. We won't show the progress bar until that happens. And I guess if that happens, we'll want to return. So end the function, there was an error. Okay, so let's just do a real quick recap. Step one, we needed a link, get the data from the file that the user tried to upload. Create our URL and make our post request to Express. What does Express do? The browser doesn't know, but Express goes to S3. It already configured AWS. It configures S3. It gets the link. It sends it back to us with the unique key. So we've got that in post response.data. Now, check to see if we have the signed link. If we don't, and I am sorry, there should be a bang there. If we don't have that, then we're going to stop everything. So I'm sorry if that was confusing. Sweet alert, rejected the link, end the function. Otherwise, okay, we have a link. So we show the display wrapper here, or the progress wrapper, and step 3, try and upload the file to S3. Okay, I say try because we cannot control what Amazon is going to send back to us. So we're going to need a try catch here just to make sure that if something goes wrong, troubleshooting will be so much easier. So we are going to console.log the error if it happens. Otherwise, we're going to make a config object. Let's add to it some headers, which will be an object itself. We need to set the content type equal to the MIME type of the file. So that has to match what's in here. That has to match what we sent over when we created the put link. Okay, so that's why we sent the MIME type back, even though we have it right here from the file type. This is what we told Amazon it was, so we have to use that or it will break. Believe me, this is not fun to fight with. It cost me so much of my life. So let's make that note here. Content type must match what Express told S3. If it doesn't, it will break and it will be a really ambiguous error. Okay, so we have to have that one in there. We'll do config.onUploadProgress. This is going to be a function. We'll call what we get back E, and we are going to run a function which we haven't created yet called update progress bar, and we will send the event. Okay, this is built into the browser. When you upload a file, this is a listener that you can add to your config object. Okay, so we're not making this. This is built into JavaScript or into the DOM. We're going to run this function when this happens. So let's come up to the top here. Let's put it above our add file. So we'll const ProgressBar equals E. And for now, we'll just console.log. E. We'll come back to this here in a minute. Let's make sure that it is trying to upload first. Now we write our request, and AWS is expecting a put verb or a put HTTP verb. You probably used to doing .gets and .posts. This is a put. We're putting an object into S3. That is their requirement, certainly not mine. So we're going to make our AWS response equals, we will await Axios.put. What URL? Well, it's what we were just sent back from Express. So it's post data .signed link, which again, that came from our index router right here, which came from our function right here. Okay, so inside scripts, we are getting this from postdata dot signed link. We have to send the file and we need to send our config. So let's go ahead and put a couple more notes in there. File is the entire file we didn't have to send to Express. So we're sending the whole file now, the HTML or the DOM object, and then config, that has our headers, which is our content type, as well as our on upload progress listener. Okay? So when that's finished, let's console.log AWS response. So we're going to expect line 42, and we're going to expect up here line 2 because this will run as it tries to upload. Now, if you get 44, that means something went wrong. Read the error. We are going to get an error, at least one, and we'll work through it, okay? So let's come back over, refresh the page, throw our image in there, continue. Okay, so our progress bar showed up. Down below here, it says access to that link from origin localhost 3000 has been blocked by CORS policy. Okay, this might be your worst nightmare. You get this occasionally and it's the last thing you ever want to see. And then it just tells us here that the put failed. All right, this is one that I knew was coming. So we need to come back over to our bucket here. Click on your bucket, and I'll start over here from S3. So I'm in S3 here. I'm not sure why it's not showing my buckets, but I will go to my buckets. I just have the one here. Click on that. If you go to permissions, I'm blocking all public access. That is fine. Scrolling down, the bucket policy, I'm not going to put anything in there for that. But down here, the ACL, those are turned off. Only the bucket owner has access. The CORS policy is right here at the bottom. So I'm going to edit this. And this comes in JSON format. You can click on Learn More, but if you go back to our starter files, so it's this repo, go to the starter files, I have an S3 CORS policy written for this exercise, okay? I am going to come back over and paste it in, and I will talk you through it here briefly. That comment cannot be there, so please remove that. This comment can't be there either, so please remove that. I will remove those for you from the file, but if they happen to be there, please remove them. It was, you can see the red X there, Amazon's letting us know that's not valid. What we are saying, we pass it an array for each CORS rule we have. We only have one. What allowed headers are there? I'm saying all. If you need to restrict, put in the appropriate headers here. I'm saying all headers are okay. What methods are okay? Get, head, and put. Strictly speaking, the only thing we need is put because that's all we're doing right now. We will need the get one eventually because we're going to get a signed link. So you can put whatever you need in there. Head is not required. I'll go ahead and delete it. Allowed origins. I have in here my localhost :3000. You should be putting in here whatever domains are appropriate. Okay. Expose headers is an empty array. The max age in seconds is 3000. Okay. Save the changes. If you scroll down, make sure that you see your rule in here now. Go back over. We don't even need to refresh. We can just simply hit continue again. It will try and upload it, and there we go. At least on my end, I hope on yours. Line 2 is that progress that's ticking along. It shows the loaded, the total, and then the percent as a progress, as well as the number of bytes that went through. And then lastly, 42 is what we got back from Amazon. The only thing that matters here is the status code. Did it succeed or not? Okay, so pause me if you need to work through an error. I totally get it. I can try and help, but more than likely, if your situation is specific, I probably won't be a lot of help. Stack Overflow will be your friend, depending on how specific it is. Okay, we can come back over now that this is working, and up at the top here for our progress bar, let's make a variable called progress done equals. We have the let's see there. They've already done the math for us here. So that is going to come from e.progress. We'll make one called bar width, which will be math.floor, just so we're working with integers. Progress done times 100. And then we'll have a bar style equals, make a template literal here, and it will be bar width, and then we'll throw a % at the end. So we're just making whatever the integer is here into a string with a % at the end. Now we need to grab our progress bar, which we don't have here. I think we've got it down at the bottom here. We have our document dot right there, the progress wrapper. This isn't going to go on the progress wrapper, though. This is going to go on the progress bar. So we need to grab this thing. So let's do document dot query selector. Grab the thing with the class of progress. So make sure that you've got that dot there. We want to do dot style dot width. Set that equal to bar width. I'm going to copy this line, and we're going to grab set attribute, and this is a method, so we're going to open close. We are going to grab, let me go over back to index. We're going to grab the aria value now. This is what Bootstrap uses. So we need to tell HTML to be wider in pixels. This is necessary for Bootstrap in order to make it look animated. So we're going to grab that attribute, and we are going to set it equal to bar width. And I made a small mistake there. This should be bar style. So sorry about that. Real quick, let's look at it again. Progress done is coming from e.progress. The browser has that built into the event. We are setting up the progress done times 100, so we have an integer to work with. So instead of 0.42958, blah, 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 it's just going to be 42. The bar style will be 42% as a string. We set the bar style equal to the width, so that the width will be proportionate to the screen or to the div. And then we set the attribute for aria value now to whatever the bar width is, which is that percentage. Okay, let's save this. Hop back over here. Let's refresh and see if our progress bar works. I'm gonna hit continue. Okay, the width worked, the aria did not. And I made a mistake here. I targeted progress. If we come back over here, it's actually on this thing. So we want the progress bar, not progress. So let's come back to scripts here, and we can drop that in for both of them. You can make a variable so you don't have to grab the same DOM element twice, which is expensive, but that is okay. Let's refresh and give this another try. Continue. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Good stuff. It uploaded, and I can hop over here quick. Let's go back to the bucket, go back to objects, refresh. All right, so I've uploaded it 4 times now. It is working. We just need to show it now. So we are on to our last step here. Let's drop in after we have done our try catch. We've got our AWS response here. Let's turn this into a promise, our own promise, because we're waiting on Amazon there. Step 3, we'll do const AWS final response equals new promise, open close, resolve, and reject. And then we're going to take this and wrap everything, the try and the catch, so all the way down to here. So again, I've got this new promise here. We're going to indent all of that, so try down to catch, and then I'm going to paste that in to close off our promise. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Our AWS final response, we need to put an async at the front of our callback here, so we've got resolve and reject. Try and upload it, catch it if you fail. Instead of console.logging here, we will resolve the AWS response, and if it fails, we will reject with the AWS, actually we'll reject with an error. Okay, so AWS response, we are going to await that new promise. So down here, let's make a note here, step, what step are we on? We are on step 4. AWS did not error, so let Express know what happened. we're going to make a new URL. So we'll do final URL to Express is http://localhost:3000/ we'll call this finalize-upload. So we'll need to make this route. Const final data. This will be an object, and we're going to send up, we'll need to send up the key, which is all the way back up in our post data. So it's post data.unique key name. So post data.unique key name, and we'll put on there, we'll just call it key. And I think that's it. That's all we need to send up. We'll do express response equals await axios.post. Go to this URL and send up the final data. What you may want to do here is instead of rejecting the error, I guess we're logging the error here. Down below, what we might do is grab the final response here and check to see. We can throw in here an if AWS final response dot status. So that means there wasn't an error, technically like a JavaScript error, but we didn't get a 200 back. So you might have something like if the status doesn't equal 200, then let Express know it failed for some non-JS reason. So Amazon was not okay with it for some reason. So we can throw that in there. Otherwise, we're going to assume that it did succeed here. We're going to send up our key. Our Express server is listening here on finalize upload. We are just about home. Let's come over here. We'll do router.post. Listen for the finalize upload route, our rec and our res. This part is going to be a lot easier, thank goodness. Let's get the key from rec.body. Let's destructure it, I guess, because we might have more things in the future. We will do const signed link equals. Let's come up to the top. We need to include that file. So we've got our get our S3 signed link. So we'll do const get S3 signed link equals require tick dot slash get the signed link. Okay, so that will fetch this file. Come down here, and we need to call that function, and we will send it the key. Okay, so the magic is going to happen over here. Thankfully, this is going to be a pretty short function. Okay, so over inside of that file, in our get the signed link, let's make const get S3 signed link equals, we need to know what the key is, and then let's do a module.exports equals get S3 signed link. Okay, so this is where we're at. Just like before, up at the top here, we are going to need the AWS module, so require AWS-SDK. We're also going to need the config module, just like before. So grab tick./config, aws.config.update, just like before. This time, you can just hand config. I think that's just fine. We went through a piece at a time, but we need the access key, the secret, the bucket, the region, the signature, a version. All of that stuff should be enough. If it's not, we will figure it out. But we're just going to hand that object to AWS config. We need to make a new S3 object. So just like before, S3 equals new AWS.S3, open, close. And we're going to hand it an empty object this time. Keep things simpler. Inside of our route now, you could put this inside here if you needed to change regions or buckets or whatever. We don't need to inside the route. But I'll go ahead and put it in there anyway. Const signed URL expire equals 60 times 60. So expire in 1 hour. This is in seconds. So 60 seconds times 60 minutes will give us 1 hour. That's how long this URL will be good for. Const the URL, let's do signed URL equals s3.getSignedUrl, just the same thing we did before, but instead of down here we had put object, we are now going to do get object. and we are going to send it params. So let's define our params just like we did before. Const params equals, it is an object. The bucket is going to be config.bucket. You can bring in the bucket just like we did the key before. We can go ahead and throw that on there. So we'll do bucket equals config.bucket. So we can get rid of that. But the bucket needs to be capitalized, so we'll need both of them. The key, capital key, is the key that's being passed in. And then expires is going to be in this, which is 60 times 60. And that is it for our parameters on this side. We are going to return our URL, our signed URL. This one is not a promise. The signed URLs are based on a hash. So when we create the put link, we need to communicate with Amazon. In this case, it doesn't return a promise, so we can just simply run the math to figure out what the hash is and send it back over. Come back over to our index router. The signed link will be valid, or at least we hope it is. We can res.json the signed link, and we are done. I will put a note in here. Do all the stuff in here that needs to happen once Express knows that the upload was successful. This is going to be things like, maybe you need to update your database, right? The person or the user uploaded or updated their profile picture. Let Express know now to update the database. Okay, whatever needs to happen. We don't have anything. We don't have a database that we're working with. So all we're going to do is send back the key so that the browser can render it. But this would be where all of that stuff would need to happen. Okay? We come back to our scripts now. And in our final response here, the Express response, this should be a valid link. So const image link equals that dot data. Let's go out. So back to our HTML. It is back up at the top here, this guy, the current image. So grab that ID. So it'll be document.getElementById. Go grab current image. Set the inner HTML equal to, go into template literal mode. We'll write an image tag with an src of, put this in quotes. It will be the image link we just got back from Express. Let's set the width equal to 100% and then close off the tag like so. Save it, okay? And if all went well, we are done. Refresh, choose a file, grab technical communication, click continue. The progress bar runs. We got a 500 error, so I made a mistake over in Node. Let's hop over there and check it out. We got missing required key bucket in params. So, thought we covered that, but let's look at it quick. Get our signed link. The bucket is right there. The bucket is not coming through because it's not config.bucket. I am sorry, it is default bucket. So that is my mistake. JavaScript was happy to let us know. Let's give it another try. We'll refresh, choose the file, continue. It runs. There is no image because I left off a double quote there. That was not valid HTML. So one more try here. Choose the file. I'm confident it'll work this time. Continue, and there is our glorious image. And if you want to check it out, you can inspect. You can open this up now because it is valid. If we hop over here, I'll do a quick refresh. There should be loads of them here. We've uploaded the same thing. That date timestamp is really nice. I will quickly show you. If I come over to security credentials, I am going to delete this key. So actions, deactivate it. And then I am going to delete it so that it no longer exists. Okay, that access key is gone. I have not changed any code. You watched everything. If I try and upload a file again here, let's go to the console, continue. It is trying to upload it, but we get a 403 back from AWS because that the Axios error, it's not a valid link. The access code that I provided didn't work. So Express did try and generate something, but AWS refused. Back over here real quick, looking at the code, it did not break. AWS generated something, but it's based on an access key that is no good, and so that is an error, or that's something that you can figure out how to work with. But we've gone on long enough. Fantastic job. I hope you find this very useful.